Always enjoy time spent with anybody from Illinois policy, but in particular, our friend Adam Schuster, who's Director of Budget and Tax Research. He's joining us this morning from Illinois Policy, illinoispolicy.org. Adam, good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me on, Riley.
Oh, always glad to have you on. Always glad to hear from you. Yeah, we've been getting a little mileage out of Illinois Senate President Don Harmon, who would like the U.S. Congress to just bail us out here. We, we've got problems. This COVID-19. We were moving along perfectly until this hit, but now we need a bailout. He's gotten pilloried pretty good for this one.
Yeah, I mean, the criticism's coming in hot and heavy for that letter. The Senate president requested, $44 billion, $10 billion, about a quarter of that for the pension system, which, was a tacit admission that this was really requesting money for problems that were decades in the making, self-made problems, mismanagement by Illinois politicians that put us in this situation. And it really, underscores the point that Illinois needs this aid far more desperately than states that have been more fiscally responsible leading up to the coronavirus crisis. So while everybody's dealing with lost revenue, there's many states, take Arizona, for example, they had a $1 billion budget, or $1 billion budget reserve going into the crisis, plus a $670 million budget surplus. So they would have been able to absorb a 15% revenue loss without, cutting a penny from their budget. Illinois had $0 saved in a rainy day fund, and of course we have perpetually imbalanced budgets. So what we're saying in this whole debate about whether Congress should give more aid to states in all this, fine, give us some financial aid, but there needs to be strings attached to make sure that mismanaged states like Illinois are fixing the financial problems that got them in this situation to begin with, because what Illinoisans really need is reform, not just more money.
Yeah, I liken it to, something that I think we can all relate to, and that is the buddy of ours who kind of lives life by the seat of his pants, never has any money, he's blown the last of it on liquor and a good time, and shows up at your place, want you to, front him until next paycheck, and maybe again, and then again, and then again, because it's forces beyond his control that are causing this. No, it's a lot of it's self-made.
Exactly. It's another really great analogy I heard is, imagine, you had a kid who's a recent college graduate, they move to the city, they buy a nice, lakefront apartment and a nice car, and they're going out to eat all the time, and before they know it, they've built up so much credit card debt, they're behind on bills, and they come to you, their parents, asking for money. Well, if you're a good parent, you might give them a little bit of money, right? You might be able to, if you can, you might help them out. But you should probably also tell them, hey, maybe we should get a more reasonably sized apartment. Maybe you should downsize your car to something you can afford. Maybe you can, eat at home once in a while so that you're actually living within a budget. And it's the same thing as Illinois. Illinois is the kid that went off and bought the nice apartment and got the nice car, and now they want to keep it, and they want the money from the other taxpayers in the other 49 states without having to make any of the changes to make sure that they're not back 6 years from now, whenever the next recession is, asking for another bailout. So we're not saying, don't help states. We're saying the help that they need is financial reform. It's not just, a blank check bailout.
We're spending some time with Adam Schuster, Director of Budget and Tax Research for Illinois Policy, illinoispolicy.org. His piece, Why Congress Should Reject Illinois' $44 billion bailout request. Yeah, it seems odd that you'd ask for that kind of money, but you would like it to be absolutely no strings attached whatsoever. Maybe you could just cut us just an overall check, and we'll take it from there. That guarantees those problems just get continually kicked down the road here.
100%. If you give Illinois politicians money without strings attached, they'll prove how good they are at wasting taxpayer dollars, except in this case, they'll be wasting the money of the other 49 states rather than just our own. We need rules and conditions in place that fix the underlying issues. So, for example, we need sound pension fund system, and we don't have that in Illinois, and the federal government should require that as a condition for anybody they're going to give money. And if you don't have a sound pension system, you should fix it. You should have real budget rules in place that ensure you have balanced budgets, and you can't rely on accounting gimmicks and tricks to sort of paper over deficits. And finally, the federal government should require any state that's asking for this money needs to have rules in place to make sure they're saving for a rainy day. Like I said, Tennessee, many other states were much more responsible over the last decade. While the economy was growing, they were putting aside money in a reserve fund, in an emergency fund, and Illinois just hasn't done that. So without rules in place to make sure we're automatically depositing into a rainy day fund and that they can't withdraw from that fund while the sun is shining, Illinois is just going to repeat these bad habits, and all the money from Congress will do is prop up those bad habits.
Yeah, and then that will be money that'll be gone, and then we'll turn right back around in 5 years or whatever, that some next financial crisis rolls around and go, listen, our pockets are empty again.
And that's what they've been doing. I mean, it's the history of what they've been doing. And, at some point, Congress needs to be the grown-ups, and Congress needs to say, Illinois, fine, you need some money, but first get your act together.
Some of the things you point out in your piece, as a result of 18 consecutive years of unbalanced budgets, Illinois has the nation's second worst net debt measured compared to the size of each state's economy. Debt per taxpayer equals $52,600.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, there's a reason that taxpayers have been fleeing the financial mismanagement of the state. There's a reason we've had 6 years in a row of population loss, and that's it right there, is that our politicians down in Springfield have built up a debt burden that's $52,000 per person, per taxpayer in this state that we owe in debt that they've mismanaged. And the way people can escape that typically is by leaving the state. We don't want to see that happen. We want to see Illinois grow stronger. We want to see our economy thrive. We want to see people be able to bounce back from this horrible coronavirus recession, get their businesses back on their feet, get their income back on their feet if they're workers. And we can't do that if we keep the same policies in place in Springfield that got us here to begin with. It's the same as when Congress passed corporate financial assistance in the last round. They said you had to put limits on CEO and other executive compensation, and you had to limit what's called stock buybacks. And these are consumer protections, and this is how bailouts are done. If you mismanage your own finances and you need to come begging for a bailout, you don't get to set the terms.
No, and I guess this leads us to the question, all right, he's asked, he would like all of this, what's the likelihood of Congress saying, here you go?
Well, I think that's really the debate right now. So Congress, it seems clear to me that some money is coming. I don't think that, they're going to draw a line in the sand and demand bankruptcy. Senate Leader McConnell floated that out there early on. It doesn't seem like that's likely to happen. I think they will probably give more money to states and local governments. Now, the questions that we still have are how much money, and then what are the conditions going to be. So Speaker Pelosi, for example, wanted $1 trillion, which is just an absurd amount of money. And Governor Pritzker is demanding, of course, that all of this money be, quote unquote, unencumbered, meaning, no strings attached. She doesn't want to have to make, financial reforms to protect taxpayer dollars.
That is virtually astounding. That somebody who has grown up in the financial world that Mr. Pritzker has, the idea that I won't take this with strings attached. No, you just hand over the money, and I don't want you telling me what to do with it. That's outrageous. Even your dog doesn't like it.
Yeah, he's very upset as well. He overheard you on the phone. No, it is an absolutely outrageous request, and that's just not how financial assistance is done anywhere in the world, public sector or private sector. I mean, even right now, if you wanted to go to the bank and ask for a loan to start a business, or ask for a loan because you're struggling, you're going to have to meet certain credit conditions, and that's what we're saying Congress needs to impose. They need to put in place credit conditions, consumer protections, taxpayer protections, and without that, they're not only the aid won't help; it'll hurt Illinoisans. It'll trap them in a system that's been failing them for far too long. And the federal government has an opportunity to be part of the rescue, but that rescue is not going to be a blank check bailout. That will not be effective, and it'll encourage more mismanagement in other states in the future, because it'll be sending a signal that politicians aren't going to have to deal with the consequences of their own decisions.
Hey, mom and dad bailed out my older brother, so when it's my turn, I can count on them doing it for me, so I shouldn't have to watch my P's and Q's that closely.
That's exactly right.
Wow. Okay. It's Illinois in a nutshell right then and there. What are the chances of that coming down from the federal government? Let's assume that they go, you know what, we're going to help you out here, but we'll do it your way, no strings attached. There's really little chance of that, right?
I don't know if there's little chance. I think it'll be a question about what strings are attached and whether they're related to the financial mismanagement. There's been some people have floated various ideas out there for what Congress could demand in return. I think it's critical that whatever those conditions are, that they should be related to the issues that got us here to begin with. But I think that there are a lot of congressmen, Republican congressmen from Illinois that I've spoken to even, who don't want a blank check bailout. They understand that that's not going to be good for the state. So I think this is in play in Congress, and you don't know for sure what they're going to do, but this idea I think certainly is part of the discussion.
Well, it's going to be very interesting to watch how this unfolds down the line. And for you guys who want to get up to speed on this one, here's what you do. Go to IllinoisPolicy.org. Read the piece, Why Congress Should Reject Illinois' $44 billion bailout request. While you're at it, There's a bunch of other great things right there on the homepage of Illinois Policy every single day. Adam Schuster is the Director of Budget and Tax Research. Adam, as always, we appreciate you taking time out of your day for us. We'll look forward to getting together next time.